So today, I just thought I'd record something practical and useful on the topic of what would I recommend somebody do with the symptoms that they're struggling with, right? So it can be pain, it can be POTS symptoms, it can be long COVID symptoms, it could be chronic fatigue, it could be anxiety-related symptoms, it could be IBS-related, it could be fibromyalgia, it could be anything, right? Any of these kind of mysterious, chronic, long-term illnesses, even short-term, like you can literally apply this to anything. And once you get the hang of these techniques, you really can just use it yourself, right? So that's what I want this video to be about, something practical, like not just watching a video to distract or to entertain. I mean, sure, we can start there. So I'll try and make it entertaining. Can't make any promises. No, but what I really want somebody to come away from this video with is, I guess, the most helpful tool that I found from my working with it in my own capacity, working with it with other people, talking about it online. Like all of this has helped me to refine and reflect back on all of the different things that I've used along the way. That's part of the great value that I get from talking about this is, I keep on getting reminded of things I'd forgotten about and different perspectives on things. And my understanding of this continues to be refined the more I engage with different people and their perspectives on this and the places they get stuck. And it all is interrelated. It all comes back to the same space, but there are nuances. There are different ways to talk about this. But let's come back to the goal of this video, and that is the number one practice that I learned, and you can get better and better and better at this, but the foundation comes down to not trying to solve the problem of your symptoms. And we can grasp this initially at an intellectual level. We can, you can hear me say this, like that's the work that I did, right? That is the work that was most beneficial for me, right? I talk about meditation, I talk about this, I talk about that. But if I reflect back, what was so helpful for me was really working hard at changing my relationship and my response to the symptoms, to the fatigue, to the emotions, to the thoughts, to everything that was coming up in my experience that felt like something I needed to solve, something I needed to fix. That's exactly what you need to sit with. That's exactly what you need to work with. But it can be really helpful to actually actively build a relationship. This might sound weird, but work at befriending your symptoms, your biggest thing that you hate the most, that you're looking for a way out of, right? Because why else are you watching these videos? Why else are you working on your recovery? Like, I'm not judging anybody. That's good. That's great to try to acknowledge that you're in a space where things are not functioning properly and you want to fix that. That's admirable, right? There's nothing wrong with that. But the counterintuitive, paradoxical thing is the way out is to look exactly at what we're trying to fix, right? So what symptom is bothering me the most? Like a great way, I mean, everybody's at different spaces with this, but it comes up so obviously in the comments often where someone will be like, but did you have this symptom? Did you have this symptom? And how do you deal with this symptom? And I understand that, right? I was there. I used to ask questions like that to other people as well. But I eventually came to this space where it was so obvious to me that was perpetuating the issue, right? It's not a judgment on anybody, but it was an understanding within myself that the only way to work through this was to go into my own experience, right? No video, no single person on the internet is going to be able to give you some magic kind of technique that's going to make all your symptoms disappear. again, at the same time, that's not saying that there aren't helpful methods, there aren't helpful techniques. There are. There absolutely are. There's so many things, so many different modalities and techniques that I've mixed together that have been so helpful along the way. But it all comes down to the same foundation. And then it can be about finding for yourself how you go about doing that. So that foundation is learning to love your symptoms, right? Like, as directly as I can put it. No sugarcoating. Like, it's exactly what I practice doing. And it's absolutely okay if it sounds absurd, if it sounds impossible, if it brings up anger and resentment and resistance and whatever it brings up. It's absolutely okay. That's part of the process, is seeing that comes up. There's nothing that this doesn't apply to. That's the other most common question I get. And I feel like that's, again, I'm learning so much along the way and learning different ways to talk about this and how to meet people where they're at. And it's beautiful. I love it. But I feel like one of the biggest things, that the ways that I can help people, is it just often becomes so clear to me where there's still some resistance that a person isn't seeing, right? Like, and it's helpful to have that engagement, right? So for somebody to ask me a question or whatever, and then, okay, but how do I get rid of this feeling? How do I not feel this anymore? And it's like you can conceptually understand this whole thing of non-resistance and acceptance and allowance and love and compassionate healing through letting everything be. But the resistance will still sneak in, right? There will still be a trying to fix, a trying to heal. And I guess that's the helpful thing of talking with people, is that they can point out things that you can't see. But my point that I wanted to make there was that feels like half of the ways that I help people is just like, can you see that there's still some resistance playing out in your experience to this, to that? And it really does apply to everything your mind might say it doesn't, like anger. Like, just allow yourself to feel whatever needs to be felt. Just allow it. Allow yourself to feel into the symptoms. Allow the symptoms to be exactly what they are. And again, as I said, there's practical applications, there's ways of introducing activity, but none of these, there was no super technical thing that worked for me. It was this foundation, and then from there you can put in place different experiments, right? Like trying to exercise again. And then once you have this foundation, though, that symptoms are not bad, there's nothing to get away from. There's no symptom that is going to, that needs to be fixed, right? Again, we can change our relationship to it, and in the long run, you know, we can have a healthier, more functional thing. And for me, everything kind of drops away, and then, you know, in different situations things come up again. But there's no problem anymore when we stop trying to fix something, when we stop trying to heal, right? It's paradoxical, because it feels so much like we need to do the healing work, and there is techniques and practices that are helpful, like exactly what I'm talking about here, like really telling yourself, I'm going to change my relationship with the symptoms. But it does just become so much simpler over time, where it's like, wow, there really is nothing to fix, there's nothing to heal, but there is stuff that needs to be felt, there is stuff that needs to be allowed, and basically we need to get out of this habit pattern of resistance. So that could be the healing work, right? It's like there is healing and there isn't healing. There's work to be done, and there's things that need to kind of be integrated, and we need to come out of old habit patterns of resistance. But if you can keep in your mind the foundation that there's nothing in my experience that is actually wrong. There's nothing wrong, really. Even the resistance is not wrong. Even the resistance is just innocent. But you don't want to be so caught up in resistance that you don't see that it's happening. And that's where the practice takes time. Like, it would be wrong to say that you don't need to meditate, you don't need to do anything, because for myself, these things only became clear through meditation, through inquiry, through different practices, through learning to calm my mind, through strengthening awareness, through building concentration, through releasing and exploring sensation, like all of these practices, that's when it becomes clear that, oh, wow, there's actually nothing to heal, there's nothing to fix. But you can only know that. I mean, I'm not an expert on any of this, but I'm just sharing my perspective. You can only know that. I can only say that because I've done all this work, right? It's like there's a lot of people online, if we're talking spirituality and awakening and all of that, there's no one to wake up, there's nothing to do. And that's true, but the way you come to that realization is through all of this kind of work, all of this kind of investigation, looking at your suffering, looking at your resistance, seeing what's it actually about, what's actually beneath it, because there are things to be revealed below the surface. It's not that you're going to get to some magical place in the future. It's really about unwinding this moment and revealing why we feel like we need to get to the future, right? Why do I need to get to this place of full recovery of, there's different ways, people could have different goals. And it's natural, again, it's absolutely natural to want health and all of that, but it comes through accepting what's here. And practically, you can do this by sitting and really cultivating space for what is here. And this takes time, this takes practice, right? You listen to this video and then go and sit and do it, and it feels like you get nowhere for 5 minutes. And it took me time, it took me work of doing meditation, of self-compassion work, of compassion for everything in my experience. And the more I could touch into this, the more it became accessible over time. So, and I at first also had no clue how to do this. Like now I feel compassion is very easy to access and is like an underlying part of my experience. But 2 years ago or 3 years ago, it did not feel like that at all. So it's absolutely, it's not like, your mind might say, I can't do this isn't right for me. And because it might sound like I just have this natural compassion that's always been with me, but it's definitely not the case. Sure, I mean, I know that everybody has different expressions and different personalities, and I know some people are more on the compassion spectrum and some people are more on the practical spectrum and all of that. But I would have told you that I was not on the compassion spectrum, whereas now that feels like the foundation of my way of living. And I think it's just a natural kind of thing inside all of us, but it can be very clouded over through mind and resistance and identification and identity and all of this kind of structural me ego stuff that gets built up over time can really hide the natural compassion that wants to come out. So it can be really helpful to practice that. So yeah, use it with whatever you're dealing with. And I hope that's helpful.